Sheriff Nate Holloway had just poured himself a coffee when he saw the dog limping down his gravel driveway. Blood matted its fur. A deep gash trailed across his flank. But what stopped Nate cold wasn't the wound. It was what the K9 carried gently between his jaws. Something small, wrapped in cloth, trembling, and alive, out in the still pine woods of Boone County. Truth didn't always come with sirens. Sometimes it bled its way to your front porch. If stories like this stay with you, you might consider subscribing. They help bring these quiet truths into the light. The pine trees had begun their nightly murmur as dust dropped over Boone County like a slow exhale. Long shadows crawled across the dirt road that wound through the hills and ended at Sheriff Nate Holloway's old farmhouse, a good 12 miles from anything paved. Crickets tuned their strings, a whippoorwill call from the ravine. Nate was on a second pour of coffee, black, no sugar, same way since his wife left 3 years back. The sheriff's badge sat on the windowsill beside him, forgotten for the moment. It was his day off, and then he saw movement in the distance. At first, it looked like a coyote dragging a broken leg, limping low to the ground, weaving slightly. Nate squinted. His porch light clicked on automatically with the encroaching dark, casting a yellow pool over the driveway. As the creature limped closer, Nate's spine straightened. He stepped off the porch with the coffee still in hand. Not a coyote. It was a dog, a K9, judging by the black vest streak with mud and blood. Jesus, Nate muttered. That bandit. The dog collapsed just shy of the porch steps, panting heavily, foam curling at the corners of its mouth. Blood matted the left flank, seeping from a wound just above the hip. The dog's eyes were wild but sharp, and between its jaws, wrapped in a stained blue dish towel, something shifted. Nate knelt carefully, setting his cup aside. It's okay, boy. Easy now. The dog didn't growl, didn't resist. Instead, it laid its head down with a heavy, exhausted groan and released the bundle gently. The towel squirmed. Nate peeled it back with shaking fingers. Inside was a newborn, red-faced, wailing now that the cloth had been loosened, its tiny limbs curling weakly. The umbilical cord still clung like a thread of damp string. Nate's breath caught. He looked down at the dog again. What the hell happened out there? By the time he got the child wrapped in clean blankets and called Doc Avery, the local vet who lived 3 minutes down the hill, the K9 had slipped into unconsciousness. You did good, boy, Nate whispered, stroking the dog's side. You damn well did good. The tag on the vest was smeared but not illegible. K9 Unit Number 42. Name, Ranger. Handler, Deputy Elena Marsh. That made Nate's blood go cold. Elena had been missing for 2 days. Last seen leaving the Boone County substation just before midnight Friday. No call. No sign of her truck. And now her K9 had crawled God knows how far through the backwoods and somehow delivered a living baby to Nate's front porch. He stood in silence, the infant now asleep in his arms, listening to shallow, raspy breathing of the dying dog at his feet. Doc Avery worked quick with a portable field kit and surgical gloves. This dog's got more heart than sense, she muttered, stitching the torn flesh with the steady hand of someone who'd patched up more farm dogs than people. He lost a lot of blood. Bullet grazed the hip. Deep laceration. Might have crawled for hours. Nate watched in the doorframe, the baby still cradled in his arms. Can he make it? Doc nodded, not looking up. If he was strong enough to carry a baby that far, he's strong enough to fight. We'll see by morning. She finished her work, laid a blanket over the dog's shivering body, and walked to the sink to wash. Her face had that tight, tired look. You gonna tell me where the hell that baby came from, Nate? He didn't answer right away. I think Ranger just brought me a crime scene, he finally said. Nate didn't sleep that night. He stayed on the couch with the baby swaddled against his chest, the wood stove clicking with each shift of heat. He stared at the ceiling as the wind moved outside like an old ghost. His mind ran through 1,000 angles. Elena's disappearance. A newborn. A bloody K9 crawling 10 miles of woods alone. None of it made sense unless something truly awful had happened out there. At sunrise, he got in his truck, left the baby with Avery, and drove straight to the substation. The deputy on duty was Russell Rusty Dunn, young, eager. The kind who always wore too much cologne and had something to prove. Sheriff? Thought you were off till Thursday. Where's Elena Marsh's file? Rusty hesitated. Still marked as presumed off duty. Dispatch figured she just skipped out. You know she's been. Find it. Rusty pulled a folder reluctantly from the drawer and handed it over. Nate skimmed. Last call, a domestic disturbance out near Red Rock Ridge. A trailer listed under the name Calvin Rourke. Nate stiffened. He knew that name. Everyone did. Convicted twice. Assault with intent. Time served. Last parole check was 6 weeks ago. The report said she responded alone. There was no follow-up entry. No report filed. No body cam footage uploaded. Nate looked up slowly. Did anyone go out there to check? Rusty cleared his throat. We figured she'd just taken off. You know, personal stuff. Nate slammed the file shut. Get your boots on. Now. They drove fast, dirt kicking up behind the cruiser, as Red Rock Ridge came into view. The trees here grew tight to the road, all thick trunks and drooping branches. Calvin Rourke's trailer sat canted on cinder blocks, rusting at the seams, a satellite dish hanging crooked from the roof. The front door was ajar. Nate's hand hovered near his hip. Rusty, cover left. Don't make a sound. They moved quiet, slow. The smell hit first. Rot, metal, something sweet under the heat. Nate pushed the door with his boot. Inside, chaos. Furniture overturned. A broken table. Blood smeared on the fridge. And on the floor, Ranger's paw prints, dark and dried. In the back bedroom, Nate stopped cold. A large bloodstain marked the center of the carpet. Sheets torn. A single deputy badge, Elena's, sat half-buried under a pillow. But no body. Nate knelt. He noticed a faint trail of prints, leading out. Smaller. Bare feet. He rose slowly. She gave birth in here, he said softly. She was taken. Maybe killed. But not before that dog got the baby. Rusty's face went pale. You think she's still alive? Nate didn't answer, but his jaw tightened. Back at the house, Ranger stirred for the first time in hours. His ears twitched, eyes opened, and his head lifted weakly as if sensing something distant calling him home. In the crib beside him, the newborn whimpered softly. The dog let out a long, low breath, and then rested his head back down, finally at peace. The following morning came hard and gray. Rain tapped the porch roof in a steady rhythm, the kind that made everything feel slower, more fragile. The world had shifted overnight. Sheriff Nate Holloway could feel it in his bones. He poured a third cup of lukewarm coffee and watched through the rain-blurred window as Ranger lay still on the worn quilt near the stove. The dog's breathing had steadied. His eyes, half lit but awake, followed Nate's every move. Doc Avery had left just after dawn, taking the baby to the clinic in town. Said she'd call with updates, but her face had betrayed more worry than words could carry. Nate crouched by the dog and gently brushed behind his ears. You're not done yet, are you? He said quietly. We've still got one hell of a trail to follow. The dog's tail thumped once against the floor. That was all Nate needed. The trailer on Red Rock Ridge gave up more secrets in daylight. Nate and Rusty had spent hours photographing everything. Every smear, every drag mark. The carpet bore signs of struggle that had gone far beyond panic. Bullet holes in the drywall. A shattered mirror. But no body. No sign of Calvin Rourke either. The blood trail, faint but clear, led from the bedroom, across the small kitchen, and out through the back door into the woods. Ranger must have followed it. Must have made a choice. Baby or vengeance? He chose the child. Nate turned toward the forest's edge. Pines tall and narrow, their branches scraping like ribs against each other in the breeze. The air was thick with wet soil and pine pitch. He could smell the story buried here. We go on foot from here, Nate told Rusty, slinging his rifle over his shoulder. You think Elena's alive? Rusty asked again. I think if she's not, her body's out there. And if Rourke's waiting for us? Nate gave him a look. We don't wait. We don't warn. We walk in quiet. They found the first sign, just 20 yards in. A torn strip of fabric caught on a bramble. Nate pulled it gently. Blue. Standard issue uniform shirt. streaked with dried blood and something darker, burnt residue, like it had been dragged through a fire pit. They pressed deeper, following the faint impressions Ranger had left. Deep grooves in soft earth, staggered paw prints, one dragging rear leg. He crawled this whole way, Rusty murmured, crouching beside the tracks. How the hell? Because someone had to save that child, Nate said. They found a second clue near a moss-covered stump. A boot, Elena's, bent backward at the ankle, snapped leather laces. Something had torn it from her foot. The inside was smeared with blood, but no signs of animal damage. Not scavengers. This was human. And then came the smell again. Rot, thick and syrupy in the throat. Nate raised his hand. Rusty stopped behind him, still as stone. Something was ahead. Nate moved first. A clearing opened like a wound in the forest. There, in the center, was what remained of a campsite. Burnt logs, ashes, empty cans. A bedroll unspooled and soaked through. And behind it, a crude lean-to. A plastic tarp tied with butcher's twine. Inside, blankets. Rope, zip ties, blood, but no body, and no Calvin Rourke. Rusty was scanning the area with his phone flashlight when something clicked beneath his boot. He paused and bent down. Shell casing, he said. Still warm. .308. Nate's face darkened. We're not alone out here. He drew his sidearm. A whisper of movement to the left. Snap. Both men dropped low. Nate scanned the trees. His breath held, heart thudding. Rusty pointed. There, behind that fallen cedar, movement. Nate moved fast, gun drawn, boots crunching softly through pine needles. He circled the trunk and found a trail of blood, fresh, dripping, leading away from the camp, back into the brush. Whoever had been here had just fled. But why? They followed the blood trail for nearly a mile. The rain had slowed to drizzle, and the forest pulsed with its quiet breath. Then the trail stopped, just ended, as if the earth had swallowed the manhole. Rusty looked around. It doesn't make sense. He was bleeding. You can't just vanish. Not unless someone helped him, Nate said. Rusty frowned. Who would help Calvin Rourke? Nate turned his head slowly toward the northern rise of hills. There was only one place left that Calvin would crawl to. One place he'd gone every time his life had unraveled. The old mining shaft. The Briar Hollow mine had been closed since 1989. The county had sealed it off after a cave-in killed 3 workers, but locals still came to drink there, especially the ones who liked being alone. Nate had arrested Calvin Rourke there once before. Meth, illegal firearms, the works. As the wind picked up and branches rattled like bones, they came upon the opening, wide, dark, and mouth-like. A collapsed gate lay rusted to one side. Inside was a black deeper than anything natural. Rusty hesitated. You really think he'd go back in there? He's bleeding. He's half dead. Nate didn't blink. I think he's hiding something. He pulled out his flashlight, clicked it on, and stepped into the dark. Inside, the mine was cold and damp. Water dripped from unseen crevices. The air tasted of copper and mildew. 10 feet in, they saw more blood. Smears this time. Not drops. Then a sound. Whimpering. Not a dog. Not a man. A woman. Elena. Nate whispered. It came again. Soft. Pained. They moved fast, turning left down a narrow corridor supported by half-rotted beams. And there she was. Elena Marsh. Bruised. Eyes swollen nearly shut. Arms bound behind her. Knees tucked under her chin. She flinched as the light hit her. Sheriff, she gasped. Rusty rushed to her while Nate scanned the shadows. Cut her loose. Now. Rusty sliced through the bindings. Elena collapsed forward, coughing. I tried to stop him, she whispered. He took the baby. Said it wasn't his. I told him she needed help, but he just snapped. Said I betrayed him. Her voice cracked. Ranger took her. I thought he died doing it, but he grabbed her and ran. He bit me to make me drop her. That's the only reason she lived. Rusty whispered, Jesus. Where's Rourke now? Nate asked. Elena shook her head. I heard him, hours ago, moving around. Said something about ending it. Said he left a surprise for you. Nate's skin crawled. He turned fast, too fast. The mind lit up, a soft beeping. Beneath the shadows of a crate in the far corner. Nate! Rusty screamed. Get down! An explosion ripped through the tunnel. Stone and smoke swallowed them whole. When Nate opened his eyes, everything was muffled, dust in the air. His ears rang like struck bells. Rusty was coughing beside him, alive. Elena lay sprawled, arms shielding her face, but conscious. The far wall had collapsed inward. The old tunnel was sealed. But Rourke gone. No trace. No body. Hours later, back at the farmhouse, Nate stood in the doorway and watched the sunset burn over the trees. Doc Avery stepped beside him, baby in her arms. She's healthy, the vet said softly. Strong lungs. Good heart. She's gonna make it. Nate looked down at Ranger, still resting. The dog stirred and for the first time lifted his head fully, his eyes locked on the child. A long, quiet moment passed, and then the baby smiled. Rusty spoke from behind them. There's still no sign of Rourke. I know, Nate said. Elena had survived. The child had been saved. Ranger had done what no man could have. But Calvin Rourke was still out there, watching, waiting, and something in Nate's gut told him this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The third night brought a storm. Heavy, unrelenting rain rolled across Boone County in waves, making the fields hum and the forest drip like open wounds. Nate Holloway stood at the edge of his porch, shotgun in hand, and stared out into the dark. He didn't trust quiet nights anymore. Not after what Rourke had left behind. Inside, Ranger slept near the stove, wrapped in fresh gauze. Doc Avery said he was healing faster than expected, though he still limped and winced every time he moved. Elena was staying in the guest room. Her face was still swollen, stitches above one brow. She barely spoke. The baby, now fed, cleaned, and checked for any trauma, had been placed in emergency care with the town's only foster nurse. Everyone was safe, but Nate couldn't shake the sense that something was unfinished. He turned toward the woods, where the trees rustled in the wind like whispers. Somewhere out there, a man still breathed. It was Rusty who brought the news the next morning. He walked and soaked, his boots tracking water across Nate's floor. They found Rourke's truck, burned out past the quarry. No prints, no sign of him. Nate looked up from the old leather binder of unsolved reports. Any sign he tortured himself? Accelerant in the bed. But here's the weird part. Whoever did it left a badge inside, melted into the dash. Nate's blood chilled. Elena's? Negative. We think it's decoy. But here's the kicker. Inside the glove box was a photo. He pulled it from his jacket. Nate took it gently. It showed a baby, freshly born, still red, wrapped in an old towel. Ranger stood behind her, jaws parted, tongue hanging, proud. The photo was blurry, taken in haste. Nate said nothing. There's writing on the back, Rusty said. Nate turned it over. 3 words. She is mine. The mine shaft had been sealed after the explosion. County sent a crew. No body recovered. Official cause. Gas ignition from a hoarded propane tank. The report was clean, but Nate didn't believe it. Elena said she'd heard him moving after she was rescued. Someone had helped him escape, and now he was laying a trail again, taunting them. This wasn't over. 3 days later, Elena finally spoke more than a whisper. Nate found her sitting on the porch with a mug of tea, wearing a hoodie that dwarfed her frame. You want the whole truth? She asked quietly. He nodded. She looked out at the trees. I was seeing him, off duty, just before I found out I was pregnant. I was gonna end it. I tried, but he snapped, accused me of cheating, said the kid wasn't his. But I never told anyone, not even you. You should have, Nate said. I know, she replied, but I didn't think he was capable of that. Her voice broke slightly. I was wrong. Nate sat beside her, the wood creaking under his weight. I think he knew, she said. I think, in his twisted way, he wanted that baby gone. But Ranger didn't. Nate said, That dog fought the whole damn county to save her. Elena gave a fragile smile. He was trained to protect what mattered. That night, Nate dreamed of blood on pine needles, of Ranger limping through endless trees, of a baby crying in the dark, and of a man watching, always watching, just beyond reach. When he woke, the wind had shifted. Something was coming. At 4:17 a.m., the baby's foster nurse called. There had been a break-in. No one hurt, but the back door had been left open, and someone had been inside the nursery. The child was unharmed, but one item had been left in her crib, a pine cone split neatly in half, and tucked inside, a small gold chain, a locket, Elena's locket, the one she said had been torn from her neck during the struggle. That afternoon, Nate made his decision. He went to see the judge, called in a favor, took emergency guardianship of the child, said the situation was too unstable, the threats too real. The judge didn't ask many questions. Everyone in Boone County trusted Nate Holloway. He brought the baby home that evening. Ranger stirred from the floor and thumped his tail once. Just once. Nate placed the child in the basket near the stove, then turned to the window and watched the tree line for a long time. He whispered more to himself than anyone. "You want her, Rourke? Come and try." 2 nights later, the trap was set. Rusty waited in the barn. Elena had a rifle trained on the east hill from the attic window. Nate sat on the porch with the baby asleep against his chest and Ranger lying beside him. The moon hung high. The trees whispered. And then, a flicker of motion near the gravel drive. Rusty's voice buzzed in Nate's earpiece. "Got a shadow. Moving slow. North to south. Looks like him." Nate's heart pounded. He didn't move. A minute passed. Then another. Then Ranger stood. No sound. No bark. Just straight up, nose to the air. Then he turned toward the woods and bolted. Ranger. Nate stood fast, baby still against him. God, Rusty. He's going after him. But the dog had already vanished into the dark. Nate handed the baby to Elena and sprinted after the dog, shotgun slung across his back. The forest opened around him, alive with sound. Ranger's trail was easy to follow. Fresh prints, crushed brush. A straight line toward the quarry. And there near the edge was a shape. A man, kneeling, hands behind his head, face bloodied, one eye swollen shut. Ranger stood beside him, teeth bare but silent. Calvin Rourke looked up at Nate, smiling through the blood. "You made it," he rasped. Nate raised his gun. "Why now?" he asked. Rourke's smile grew. "I just wanted to see her. Just once. She looks like me, don't she? You don't deserve to breathe near her." "I know," he said, "so finish it." But Nate didn't pull the trigger. He cuffed him, dragged him back to the cruiser, while Ranger limped behind, every step earned. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Elena testified. The baby's DNA matched Rourke's. He was charged with attempted murder, kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, and assault of a law officer. The courtroom never made a sound when the verdict was read. Guilty. Life. No parole. 6 months later, Nate sat on the porch again, the baby now crawling at his feet. Ranger lay beside her, gray creeping into his muzzle, eyes soft. Elena walked out with a plate of cornbread, her steps slower now but steady. "Looks like a storm coming," she said. Nate looked toward the hills. "Nah," he said. "That one already passed." The baby giggled, and Ranger gave a single, tired bark, a sound that echoed through Boone County like the end of a story long waiting to be told. End of Chapter 3. Quiet epilogue. Approximate 100 words. Ranger passed one spring morning, curled beside the wood stove with the little girl's hand resting on his fur. The vet said his heart gave out peacefully. But Nate knew better. Some hearts only stop once their mission is done. They buried him under the pine tree where he first arrived, stone marked with nothing but his name. And every year after, the girl would place a pine cone on the stone, because that's where she was found, and that's where she was saved. Ask ChatGPT.